Did you know that buried within existing executive orders, there are specific provisions allowing the federal government to confiscate 5 categories of private property the moment martial law is declared? And I'm not talking about criminals or looters, I'm talking about law-abiding citizens like you and me, under legal frameworks that already exist on the books today. In this video, we're going to examine exactly what assets are on the government's confiscation list, using declassified documents, historical precedents from American soil, and insights from former military personnel who've seen the contingency plans firsthand. We'll cover the documented firearms seizures during Hurricane Katrina, that most people have forgotten the fuel rationing systems that existed during World War II and are ready to be reactivated, the executive order signed by multiple presidents that authorize food requisition from private citizens, the communications blackout protocols tested during civil unrest, and the diversification strategies that actually work when society breaks down. But let me be crystal clear, this channel doesn't traffic in fear-mongering or conspiracy theories. Everything I present is backed by verifiable documentation, historical events that actually happen on American soil, or contingency plans that exist in official government records. You decide what level of preparation makes sense for your situation. This information is extremely valuable and could make the difference between maintaining your autonomy or losing it overnight. I ask that you watch until the end and share this with fellow patriots who value their independence. Because as preppers and survivalists, we know that shared knowledge strengthens our entire community. Before we dive in, quick question. Have you ever personally experienced government overreach or restrictions during an emergency? Drop a comment, because I want to hear real experiences from veterans of past crises. What constitutional rights disappear the moment martial law is declared? Let's start with the fundamentals. When martial law is declared, civilian authority is suspended and control transfers directly to military command. This means your constitutional rights, yes, even in the United States, become temporarily suspended under military authority. The first thing that evaporates is your freedom of movement. Immediate curfews, military checkpoints on major highways, travel restrictions preventing you from leaving your county or even your neighborhood. We've seen this in American cities during the 1990 Los Angeles riots, after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and during the Ferguson unrest in 2014. According to the U.S. Army's own operational manuals, on domestic operations, movement controls are implemented within 6 to 12 hours of declaration, specifically to prevent population mobilization and resource relocation. They know that armed, mobile citizens are harder to control than stationary, isolated ones. The second freedom that vanishes is your right to free information. Media outlets operate under military censorship, internet access becomes heavily restricted, and social media platforms are either shut down or monitored in real time. During the Boston Marathon bombing manhunt in 2013, we saw a beta test of this. Authorities requested major cell carriers to shut down service in specific areas, and social media was flooded with official messaging while contrary information was flagged and removed. Here's what most Americans don't realize: the legal framework for total information control already exists. The Defense Production Act, the Communications Act of 1934, and multiple executive orders give the president authority to commandeer all communications infrastructure during a national emergency. That includes your cell phone, your internet service, and your ability to know what's really happening. The objective is always the same: control the narrative and prevent unapproved information from circulating. As preppers, we understand that information is power, and without free information, every decision we make is based on what the government wants us to know. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced severe movement restrictions or censorship in your area during an emergency? Comment below, because these real-world experiences help all of us prepare better. What private property will they confiscate first? Now we get to what directly affects us as prepared individuals. What physical assets will be seized first? Firearms and ammunition top the confiscation list, and this isn't theoretical speculation. We have documented American precedent. During Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, 2005, law enforcement and National Guard units confiscated firearms from law-abiding citizens who legally owned them. According to the National Rifle Association's legal filings and the Institute for Justice reports, over 1,000 firearms were seized without warrants, without due process, and without receipts. But here is the detail that should concern every gun owner. Those confiscations were executed Using existing firearm registration records, they knew exactly who had what and where they lived. Officers simply showed up at addresses on the list and said, "We're taking your firearms for public safety. Resistance men arrest." The lesson is stark. Firearm registration databases become confiscation lists when the political winds shift. And here's what most people don't know. According to a leaked ADF document from 2021, the federal government maintains a searchable database of nearly 1 billion firearm transaction records, despite laws supposedly prohibiting the National Registry. When they want to find your guns, they know where to look. Currency and financial assets are the second target. Bank account freezes, severe withdrawal limits, and in extreme scenarios, direct asset seizures. During the 1933 banking crisis, President Franklin Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, which literally made it illegal for American citizens to own gold. Citizens were required to turn in their gold to the Federal Reserve at $20.67 per ounce or face up to 10 years in prison. Think that can't happen today. After the January 6th events, we saw financial institutions freeze accounts of individuals who hadn't even been charged with crimes, simply based on their political associations or their presence in Washington, D.C. that day. Payment processors like PayPal, Stripe, and even banks closed accounts without due process. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has documented procedures for financial stabilization during national emergencies that include restricting cash withdrawals, implementing negative interest rates, and prioritizing government access to financial resources. Your money in the bank is really yours when the government decides it needs it more. The strategy here is diversification, cash hidden at home in multiple locations, precious metals that can't be digitally frozen, cryptocurrencies and hardware wallets that you physically control, and tangible assets that maintain value regardless of the banking system's status. Here is my question for you. Do you have a financial diversification strategy specifically designed for crisis scenarios? Share your approach in the comments. No specific amounts, just strategies so we can all learn from each other. What essential resources come under government control? The resources you've stockpiled for basic survival also become targets for state control. Fuel and energy are rationed immediately. During World War II, the U.S. government implemented a comprehensive fuel rationing system using coupon books. The difference is that today's energy dependence is exponentially greater. Your vehicle, your backup generator, your heating system, everything runs on fuels that can be rationed or requisitioned overnight. According to the Classified Department of Energy documents from Operation Garden Plot and Rex 84, there are detailed protocols for prioritizing fuel distribution during domestic emergencies. First, military operations. Second, essential services. Third, public transportation. And last, if there's anything left, private citizens. If you're an ordinary civilian, you're at the bottom of the list. But here's something new that most preppers haven't considered. Electric vehicle charging infrastructure. The federal government, through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, has funded a nationwide network of EV charging stations. What most people do realize is that these stations are remotely controllable and can be shut down or restricted through central command. If you think switching to an EV gives you independence, think again. You've just traded one controllable energy source for another. Stored food supplies can be requisitioned under executive orders that already exist. Specifically, Executive Order 13,603, signed in 2012 and still active today, gives the federal government authority to commandeer food resources and food resource facilities during national emergencies. This includes privately stored food that exceeds normal consumption levels. Picture this scenario. Federal agents accompanied by local law enforcement knock on your door. At 2 a.m., we have information that you possess substantial food reserves under Section 201 Executive Order 13,603. We're authorized to inventory and redistribute these resources for community welfare. What can you do under martial law conditions? Legally nothing. The strategy here is simple but critical. Never consolidate all resources in one location. If you have 6 months of food storage, don't keep it all in your basement. Distribute it, some at home, some at a trusted relative's location, some at a secondary site. If they come for your supplies, they find only a portion. Prescription medications and medical supplies also fall under government prioritization. Hospitals transition to military control, and critical medicines are distributed according to government criteria, not medical need. If you depend on insulin, blood pressure medication, or other life-sustaining pharmaceuticals, you could find yourself cut off during martial law. Here is a critical fact from a former FEMA logistics coordinator I interviewed. Pharmaceutical distribution centers have protocols for critical patient prioritization that categorize citizens into tiers. Tier 1 is government officials and military personnel. Tier 2 is essential workers. Tier 3 is everyone else. If you're diabetic and in Tier 3, you wait until Tier 1 and 2 are served first. The Veterans Affairs system already practices a version of this. During medication shortages, veterans have reported their prescriptions being delayed or substituted because priority went to active military facilities first. This isn't conspiracy theory, this is documented operational procedure. Have you stockpiled critical medications for your family? What's your backup plan if pharmacies close or refuse to fill prescriptions? Share your strategies below because this could literally save lives in our community. How will they isolate you and control information flow? Information control is perhaps the most sophisticated and dangerous aspect of modern martial law. Communications blackout includes cellular networks, internet access, AM, FM radio. And here is something many preppers overlook. Shortwave radio and amateur radio can also be jammed or used to track your location. The U.S. military possesses technology capable of jamming virtually any civilian radio frequency. More importantly, they can triangulate your exact position if you transmit. That secure radio communication you think you have becomes a beacon broadcasting your location to anyone with the right equipment. I've spoken with former Signal Corps officers who've told me plainly, we don't care what you're saying on your ham radio. We care that you're transmitting outside official channels. That makes you a person of interest. During martial law, unauthorized communication is treated as potential coordination for resistance. During the Ferguson unrest in 2014, local law enforcement deployed Stingray devices, fake cell towers that force all phones in an area to connect through them. Every call, every text message, every GPS location was intercepted and logged. Participants in protests found themselves receiving targeted messages and, in some cases, visits from authorities based solely on their phone's location data. Here's what's newer and more concerning. According to a 2023 Department of Homeland Security report, federal agencies now have access to geofence warrants that allow them to identify every mobile device present in a specific area during a specific time. They don't need to know who you are beforehand, they identify everyone present. Then investigate from there. Alternative communication strategies need to be low-tech and local. Face-to-face community networks, pre-established meeting points, visual signal systems, physical dead drops at predetermined locations. It sounds old-fashioned because it is, and that's exactly why it works. You can't hack or jam a face-to-face conversation in your neighbor's basement. The key is coordinating with your trust network before crisis hits. If cell towers are down, we meet every other day at 6 p.m. at this specific location. If that location is compromised, we have alternate location B. Simple, effective, and immune to electronic surveillance. Do you have an alternative communication plan with your family or community group? If you've developed a strategy that goes beyond what I've mentioned, share it in the comments so our entire community can benefit. What survival strategies actually work when everything breaks down? Now we get to the practical implementation, what you can do starting today to protect your autonomy. Total diversification is your primary defense. Don't store all resources in one location. Don't depend on a single energy source. Don't rely on one communication method. If you own firearms, don't register them all. If you have cash, don't keep it all in one bank. If you've stockpiled food, don't consolidate it in your home. This strategy is called risk distribution, and it's used by international banks, global corporations, and smart governments. Here's a specific tactic from operational security. Maintain 3 distinct supply caches. Your primary cache at home contains enough for 2 weeks. Your secondary cache, at a location within 50 miles that you can reach on foot if necessary, contains another month's supplies. Your tertiary cache, at a more distant location accessible only to trusted family members, holds your long-term reserves. Alternative energy systems give you real independence. A small solar array can charge phones, LED flashlights, and portable radios without depending on the electrical grid. A quality e-bike lets you travel 50 miles without gasoline. Manual tools function when the power's out, but be strategic. Don't make massive investments that attract attention. A 10,000-watt diesel generator in your backyard screams this person has resources and invites problems. Better to have several small, discrete, distributed systems. Here's something most preppers miss. Thermal signature. If your house is lit up like a Christmas tree while the rest of the neighborhood is dark, during a blackout, you've just painted a target on yourself. Blackout curtains aren't just for privacy. They're operational security essentials. Solid community network is your real survival insurance. A single family is easy to control or eliminate. 10 coordinated families are a challenge. 50 families supporting each other are practically impossible to subjugate. History teaches us that organized communities survive better than isolated individuals. During the Great Depression, neighborhoods that formed mutual aid networks had dramatically lower mortality rates than areas where people isolated themselves. During Hurricane Katrina, the neighborhoods that fared best weren't the wealthiest, they were the ones with strong community bonds who looked after each other. Start small, know your immediate neighbors, identify useful skills, who knows mechanics, who has medical training, who has communications expertise. You don't need to form a militia, just a mutual support network. But here's the critical detail. Vet your network carefully. One person who reports your activities to authorities can compromise your entire group. During the Cold War, FBI counterintelligence operations against domestic groups succeeded primarily through informants. Within the organizations themselves, trust, but verify. Psychological preparation is as important as physical preparation. Extreme control. Situations generate massive stress, depression, anxiety. Your mind needs to be trained to make rational decisions under pressure. Practice scenarios mentally. What would you do if federal agents knock on your door at 3 a.m.? How would you respond if they demand entry to search your home? Do you have a plan B if your plan A fails completely? Have you discussed with your family what triggers would cause you to activate your emergency plans? Here's what former Special Forces personnel emphasize. Rehearse your plans physically, not just mentally. Practice your bug-out route. Test your communications protocols. Verify that family members know their roles. The time to discover that your teenager doesn't know how to use your backup radio isn't during the actual emergency. What aspect of this preparation seems most challenging for you to implement? Comment below, because I'm genuinely interested in what real obstacles you face in your preparedness journey. What does American history teach us about martial law? Martial law isn't science fiction or conspiracy theory. It has happened multiple times throughout American history, even in modern times. The United States has declared martial law or equivalent emergency powers over 60 times since the founding. During the Civil War, World War I and II, the 1960s race riots, natural disasters, and more recently during events like the 1990 Los Angeles riots, post 9/11 security measures, and COVID-19 lockdowns. Each time, American citizens temporarily lost constitutional rights. And here's the crucial detail. Temporary sometimes extends for months or years. The Patriot Act was supposed to be temporary. It's been renewed repeatedly for over 20 years. Hurricane Katrina provides the most recent comprehensive case study. Beyond the firearms confiscations I mentioned earlier, we saw forced evacuations from homes, warrantless searches, suspension of due process, and civilians held in detention facilities without charges. American citizens on American soil, treated as enemy combatants. But here's something most people don't know. After Katrina, the Department of Defense commissioned a study called Lessons Learned. Hurricane Katrina that specifically analyzed what worked well in their martial law operations and what needed improvement. That document became the blueprint for future domestic military operations. They weren't apologizing for overreach, they were refining their techniques. COVID-19 lockdowns gave us a preview of how quickly Americans will comply with severe restrictions. Within weeks, most of the country accepted curfews, business closures, movement restrictions, and even prohibitions on religious gatherings, all without martial law being formally declared. Imagine what compliance looked like when military enforcement backs up those orders. According to a Pew Research study from 2020, over 70% of Americans supported strict lockdown measures at their peak. The government learned that most citizens will voluntarily surrender freedoms when sufficiently frightened. That's a dangerous lesson for them to learn. Post-January 6th measures demonstrated another concerning precedent: the federal government's willingness to use military force preemptively. Over 25,000 National Guard troops were deployed to Washington, D.C., more than are deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. The message was clear: the government will use overwhelming military force against domestic political opposition when it deems necessary. The historical lesson is stark. Martial law can happen anywhere, anytime, when authorities decide the situation justifies it. and once implemented, it always lasts longer than initially promised. The emergency powers granted after 9/11s were supposed to be temporary. We're still living under many of them over to decades later. Have you personally experienced government overreach during emergencies in your lifetime? If so, share your experience, because these real testimonies help all of us understand what we might face and how to prepare better. So here's my question for you. Which of these strategies seems most essential to implement first? Do you already have some of this preparation in place? Comment below. I read every single one, and your insights might feature in a future video. By the way, I am leaving a link in the description to our website, where I maintain a constantly updated resource list on preparing for government control scenarios. It's completely free for you to access and implement. Keep watching, because I'm about to tell you something critically important that complements this video. Martial law isn't the only scenario we need to prepare for. Economic collapse, natural disasters, and infrastructure failures can create equally challenging situations, sometimes worse, because there's no clear authority structure at all. And of course, check out our exclusive channel merchandise and preparedness gear. When you purchase, you get quality products, and you support this channel's continued production of content like this. As preppers and survivalists, we understand that preparation isn't paranoia, it's responsibility. Not preparing and hoping it'll never happen is literally gambling your freedom and your family's security on the assumption that governments will always act in your best interest. History proves otherwise. Governments act in their own interest of survival, and when they feel threatened, they suspend civil liberties to maintain control. It's happened repeatedly throughout American history, and the legal frameworks for it to happen again are already in place. Here is something I want you to remember. The difference between a free citizen and a subject is preparation and mindset. They can control the unprepared masses relatively easily, but individuals who've diversified their resources, built community networks, and maintained their capacity for independent action, those people remain free even when circumstances try to take that freedom away. If you found this content valuable, hit that like button, share it with fellow patriots who need this information, and subscribe to the channel for more real-world preparedness strategies. And definitely check out the videos I am linking on screen and in the description. They complement this topic and will take your preparation to the next level. Before you go, let me leave you with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. That vigilance includes being prepared for scenarios where those in power decide your constitutional rights are temporarily inconvenient. Remember, a prepared patriot is a free citizen, even when circumstances attempt to strip that freedom away. Watch that video appearing on your screen now. It complements this topic perfectly. Preparation is a journey, not a destination, and every step you take moves you closer to true independence. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, stay free. I'll see you in the next video.